I'll start with three important ones. One is that Cortidex can now actually replicate and reconstruct traditional extant textiles through the digitization and digital loop technology. So when you say extant, these are old textiles that can no longer be woven by weavers in the communities. So Cordidex can actually intervene on that one. And then it does not aim to replace handlooms, but in fact to aid the weavers using the data from the digital loom technology. And then at the same time, we return those data so that younger weavers can reweave traditional patterns. And lastly, this would enable our local weavers to empower themselves, no? And at the same time, for engendering ethnic identity and hopefully to sustain traditional weaving in the Cordillera region in northern Luzon. So I'd like to introduce Cortidex. What is Cortidex? This is a multidisciplinary team. We have a long list of what we're doing. We document extant textiles. We conduct anthropological fieldwork in the Cordillera. We reconstruct extant textiles. We rejuvenate the interest in traditional weaving and provide anthropological and technical protocols later on at the end of the research on how to replicate textiles and design protocols using indigenous materials, local patterns, and of course made by local weavers. So our team is the research is going on for already on our fourth year now, and so you can see the first one from 2016 to 2018. This is the research that we conducted. And then from 2018 to this year, we started with the digital loom technology. So we have a lineup. Can you see this? So we have a lineup of a research team from anthropology, ethnobotany, ethnomusicology, recording the sound of the weaving and then reweaving that. If you know Dr. Febredente did that. We also have physics, chemistry. We have ergonomics. This is from the Human Kinetics program of UP, trying to understand the conditions of the weavers because they have back pains, poor eyesight, lung cancer, if you know. And we also look into that one. We have economics and we have geography people on board to study the fusion of tattoo patterns, textile patterns across northern Luzon. And then we have collaborators from Plymouth Engineering, that's the inventor of digital weaving in Norway. Then we have the Department of Textiles from the Metropolitan Manchester University. We also participated with the crafting project under the British Council. And of course, from UP, we have the Department of Clothing and Textiles, Department of Geography, and Philippine Textile Research Institute, where we have our textiles tested for several purposes: strength, tensile, thread count, wettability, etc. So we test our textiles with the PTRI. Okay, so we went in 7 different areas in northern Luzon, from Benguet region up to Apayao. So Apayao, Abra, Kalinga, Mountain Province, Ifugao, Benguet, and Nueva Vizcaya. So we have been extensively documenting the weaving traditions of this area, whether that's backstrap loom or loom weaving. And we found out that there are many extant textiles that are no longer woven. And then we found out that most of them are elderly women who are weaving. The men, we wanted to put them in the picture, but they are the ones building the looms for the women, the carpentry work. So that's their role in the tradition of weaving. So we have a long list of what we're doing: documentation, analysis of textiles, evidence of indigenous mathematical concepts, no? By analyzing the symmetries of the textile. We also investigated all these physical properties of the textiles, and then we are now in the process of replicating and digitizing traditional textiles through digital loom technology. And all of these findings, we hope to disseminate our findings such as this venue. We also conduct workshops on weaving, our publications, and of course the exhibition. The most recent one is our 3-year research finding, which is a research report compiled a lot of our collaborators in the research, which is also now contributed as a basis for the current exhibition at Museo Cordillera called Hand-Woven Tales. So this is a very comprehensive exhibition of textiles from northern Luzon. So if you happen to go to Baguio, this is the current exhibition that we have. So these are all made by women, and we also have the process of weaving, traditional form, and then we also have our local weavers coming into the exhibition, and they work as co-curators in setting up the exhibition for us. And we have conducted archival research of the use of textiles in ritual life among the Igorots. For instance, we were able to unearth archival photographs using textiles in different life processes among the Tingyan, for instance, in Abra. And then we have photographs from Abra. And then we also have invited weavers to demonstrate loom weaving during the exhibition. So, the meat of my presentation is to start with 3 problematics. So the first one is that we found out that weaving is transmitted through oral tradition and learning by doing techniques. So the weavers are not sage in front of a classroom teaching you how to weave, but for the Cordilleran people, you observe, you learn, and you do it. That's the process. As such, the process is partially coded. No, it's not written down in full form. There is no extensive written record about how it is done, what are the patterns, what are the formula for the thread counts and everything. No, and we want to intervene into that, the full documentation of this weaving process. So if you can see here of a photograph of an elderly master weaver teaching another elder. No, it's all oral transmission. No? And most of them are elderly weavers, such as this one in Gadang, in Paracelis. And then, of course, in Bontok, in Kando, we found out that most of the elderly women just weave funerary textiles. And the younger one would weave the colorful ones because there is a taboo that should be observed in the production of these textiles. The second problematic, there are changes in the technology of weaving through time, such as the weaving implements. If you know weaving, there is a bamboo suyon, or the reed that is made of fine bamboo. The artisans of those ones are gone, long gone. So this has been substituted by metal reeds, which are largely, they are bigger, And so the output of the weave is also bigger, not as fine as 100 years ago or 50 years ago. So there's an effect on that. And then also the lack of materials. Traditionally, we have Philippine cotton, but now they use available commercial threads like polyester. You can just buy that in the market. They are synthetically dyed, easy to use, and you don't need to go to the tedious process of dyeing. And more importantly is the loss of the artisans. No? So they're old, they're young, but the interest is gone. No? So these are the problems we encountered in the field. And also the surge of ready-to-wear clothes and the advent of ukay-ukay, or the second-hand clothes, which is cheaper for them. So they tend to set aside weaving clothing for the family or the household. The third one is, so this is a photograph of an elderly woman in Nanin in Kalinga. So you can see here the weaves, no, traditional weaves, and her backstrap looms, no. But there's a disinterest in the young. They can no longer weave these traditional patterns. So we also resorted to archival research in the museums. We look at this traditional weaving implements from the Field Museum of Chicago. Also photographs, no, how it's traditionally done. This one is the bamboo reed I was talking about earlier. This is already extant. The artisans are also got. Maybe the design center can help us fabricate this one. And also, more importantly, the lack of interest on the tedious process, the health hazards, and of course, the low income return of weaving, hence the decline of significance and interest in traditional handloom weaving. So those are the three problematic. But in the last 2 or 3 years, there is a strong resurgence of the revival of weaving in the Philippines because of government laws, no? That you have to wear uniforms, it has to be naturally made, etc. So there's an interest of this reviving of traditional handloom weaving. So here we wanted to show what can Cortidex do in terms of intervention on in rejuvenating the interest of weaving. So so we did research in the Cordillera. We went to US and Europe to practically document all of the textiles that were carried by missionaries, early travelers, German travelers, US missionaries who went to the Philippines, who went to northern Luzon, and collected all of these textiles and were deposited in different repositories in the US, like the Field Museum, the American Museum of Natural History, and in Germany, all the ethnological museums have northern Luzon collections there. And we did research in various, the photographs as well, and then of course we did examination and technical characterization of textiles. And then recently we went, our research team went on a training on digital loom technology in Norway. So these are examples of our research in the field. So these are the century-old woven textiles from the Field Museum of Chicago. We have 236 traditional textiles of 100 years old. No? And then in Germany, we have this textiles collected in the 19th century by the German travelers. And they are well taken care of. So we don't have issues about repatriation. So these are ceremonial blankets from the Tingyan group from the collection of Fay Cooper Cole. This is a famous funeral with all the traditional textiles used in the mortuary rites among the Tingyan. And we also documented the recent funeral in July 2017, and of course the use of specific textiles during the funeral. Okay, so these are footloom from Bontok. Okay, so these are examples of how the traditional handloom are made, and these are from Ifugao, the ikat technique, Kalinga, in Paracelis, and Abra. So the fourth part of my paper is the Digitisation Possibilities from backstrap to digital loom. So when you are a weaver, you can actually translate mentally, from your head down to the paper using a graphic paper. So surprisingly, when we tried this approach, this is an approach taught to us by the Metropolitan Manchester University. So we found out that it's easier for the weaver to draft designs on a graphic paper versus a beginner weaver who is a bit confused what to do. No? So for them, it's a natural, organic way to just do the drafting of the textile patterns. Okay, so we taught them how to do this, and they got along. No? But the approach of Cortidex is different. So what we do is to use their own coding language. This is reminiscent of the talk of our national artist this morning, to use their own ways of coding language to unlock the patterns of extant textiles. So for the local weavers, they have their own way of weaving. They have their own way of coding. So maybe there's a count, no? Indigenous way of counting, indigenous way of making things. No? For instance, this one in Bangar Abra is called as manmarka, or to mark. The job of the old woman there is to mark the patterns or the letters at the middle of a queen-size blanket. That's her only job, but there's a way of counting it. So this one is in Ifugao, in Kiangan Ifugao. They have coded this using counting system. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 4, 3, 2. Reverse. And they have a way of doing the ikat patterns. So these patterns appear in their ikat blanket or the ikat technique, the binubodan technique. And this translates to this one. So you can see the patterns. These are tie-dyed, no? And they have their own system. And this one we found in Nanay Kalinga. They have their own way of decoding the arrangement or the thread counts in their traditional weaves, no? So this is the most respectful way of documenting their coding language and infusion of modern technique, no? Of course, we can do that, but we have to respect the way the weavers do it, their own way. No? So in this way, you can document the process. At the same time, you empower them to use their techniques and to use their coding system. Who are we to intervene? We're just, facilitating and bringing out this beautiful counting and very systematic way of weaving using traditional ways. So in Cortidex, since we have math people working with us, we also did mathematical symmetry analysis. This is the more formal way of analyzing textiles using mathematical crystallography. So what you do here is to count the patterns based on formulas. There are 8. No? So if you have 8 patterns present in this binacol form, then there's a very high, very high understanding of the arrangement of the patterns. Then we also have reflectance RTI, so we do a detailed imaging of the textiles, so we count them. Then we also do finite modeling. This is already high-tech, no? The 3D modeling of the textiles in order to understand the wave structures. The weavers, of course, they have their own way, but this is the other alternative ways of analyzing the textile structures. And then we have image color reduction, so we also do this kind of analysis. No, it's similar with the graphing paper, but we use a certain software to do it. Okay, so these are examples of digitising. Even the word itself. So we have a person who's working on the more technical aspects of weaving. Okay, so this is 3D modeling already. Of course, if we show this to our local weavers, they would say, ano yan? What's that? So this is to aid their indigenous knowledge of coding system and, of course, the scientific way of doing it. We also have a universal testing machine that would analyze the thread use, such as measurement of the diameter of the thread. So we can actually use this UTM And of course, the digital loom weaving. So this is a new technology. Like I said, we trained in Norway to actually learn about that. So this is an old binnacle pattern, 1900 sample. It is made of pure cotton, naturally dyed, single thread warp and weft. It has, if you count this is 28. This means 28 sticks. Okay, so the more complex the design is, the more headed sticks that you put. This can no longer be replicated. The ones you see are the ones in vegan or in Ilocos. The thread is like 8 times thick, no, to fast track the production. So that's our exhibition with Ma'am Norma Respicio. And we go to a process of analyzing that. So this is the digitized version by the Metropolitan Manchester University. So if you can see, this is not the original. It's not the version of the original, of course. But what they do is to digitize this the Western way. No? So that's the traditional pattern. Then you decode the design using this one. Okay, so you use a weave software. So what we did in Norway, this is what I digitized, no? Meticulously counting, meticulously counting every thread using a weave software by deconstruction. You can work for 2 hours making this long. So this is smaller than the original one. No? So there's glow in the dark thread, this one. I use different materials from cotton, alpaca wool, Philippine cotton, piña fiber, whatever. No? So we all use materials, no, from the Philippines to fabricate this material. So that's the outcome. And also other examples such as old photos from men's loincloth. That's the baracas or the belt. That's the original from the Field Museum, and this one is the fabricated. So we went through the same process, and this is the fabricated baracas, close to the original. This is the closest that we could get. Okay, so we move on. And then we also return this to the source of this horse pattern. And surprisingly, they were counting my threads. So they started counting here, and they said 29, 30. Bakit ang dami? Why 30? That's impossible. This cannot be done in a backstrap loom. So I revealed that I made this in the digital loom. So what is positive here is that they are open to this kind of technology. And they are also full of curiosity. No? How is that possible? Like I said, we're not going to replace hand looms, but to aid them in reproducing and returning back all the original patterns that they lost, no, through time. Okay, these are the Itneg weavers, and they said, no, you cannot produce this. Only a master weaver could produce this kind of material. Okay, so in the last slides, I'll be showing you, aside from digitization, we also came up with stories of master weavers that we met in the field. So we're producing also children's stories that we hope to bring to the communities and integrate that to the curriculum. We also produced documentaries of the weaving process. So all of those you can find in the museum. So we also have weaving pedagogy. So we teach weaving to local weavers, no, to understand the concept again, no, we review. And then we also do weaving workshops in schools, such as in the College of Home Economics in UP Diliman. We have over 100 students learning weaving, backstrap loom. Then we conducted workshops in UP Baguio also recently for free. And then, yeah, move on. So that's the workshop at the Museo Cordilyera. Then we also have a project called Share a Loom. So what we do is we loan our backstrap loom so they can start weaving to interested people for free. So this is the project of Cortidex, and time's running out. 2 minutes left. And I just want to show you, this is the Share a Loom project we're doing. And then that's it. Okay? So that's the significance of the entire research. No? Okay, so this is what we're doing at the moment. A lot of things, but moving on to the aim really is to integrate hopefully weaving in the educational curriculum. I think it's high time. In Lubag and Kalinga DepEd in K to 12 have started to incorporate weaving in their classes. So hopefully in Northern Luzon we can also do that for other schools. And we're also collaborating with a lot of scientists, scholars, researchers on how to do this project for Northern Luzon, and hopefully that will spread out in the Philippines. Thank you.